Welcome back, students. This is Lanify Brain Loom, and we were learning the rise of nationalism in Europe in some parts of my videos. Now, let's get back to this new video on the other portion of the chapter. Now, the topic is the making of nationalism in Europe. Now, in the mid 18th century, there were no nation states in Europe. So Germany, Italy, Switzerland were divided into kingdoms, duchies, and cantons, whose rulers had their autonomous territories. They did not share a collective identity, or you can tell a common culture. The Habsburg Empire that ruled over Austria and Hungary was a combination of many different regions and people. Just, just like that, it included the Alpine regions, Austria, Sudetenland, Bohemia, where the aristocracy spoke German. Now, Italian speaking provinces of Lombardy, Venetia, Hungary, in which half of the population spoke Magyar, Galicia, where the aristocracy spoke Polish. Ordinary people like Bohemians and Slovaks in the north, Slovens in Carolina, Croats in the south, and some other Romans in Transylvania. Now there is another point called the aristocracy and the new middle class. The aristocracy was socially and politically dominant class in Europe. The people in this group shared a similar way of living and ignored the regional differences. They owned estates, property both in the countryside and townhouses. Their families were often connected by ties of marriage. However, this influential aristocratic group constituted a small numerical portion of the population. In Western and parts of Central Europe, the growth of the industrial production and trade meant the growth of the towns and the emergence of commercial classes whose existence was based on production for the market. As a result of industrialization, a new social groups of working class population and the middle class, including industrialists, businessmen, professionals, came into existence. Now, what is the meaning of liberal nationalism? Ideas of national unity in the early 19th century Europe were closely related to the ideology of liberalism. The word liberalism comes from the Latin word liber, which means free. In political sense, liberalism focuses on the idea of a government based on the agreement of the people. However, political liberty did not ensure universal suffrage, that is, the equal voting rights. Only men who owned property had the right to vote and to get elected. Men without property and all women couldn't participate in politics. On the other hand, in the economic sphere, liberalism meant freedom of markets and the abolition of restrictions imposed by the state on the movement of goods and capital. In 1834, Customs Union or Zollverein was formed, which abolished tariff barriers and reduced the number of currencies from over 30 to 2. Now, most conservatives did not want to return to the society before the revolution. Instead, they realized that the changes Napoleon made could modernize and strengthen traditional institutions like the monarchy. A modern army, a well-functioning government, a strong economy, and abolition of feudalism and serfdom could strengthen the autocratic monarchies in Europe. The Congress was hosted by the Austrian Chancellor Duke Metternich. They drew up the Treaty of Vienna of 1815 with the goal to reverse many of the changes that happened in Europe during the Napoleonic Wars. Now, what were the major points of the Treaty of Vienna? The Bourbon dynasty, which had been disposed during the French Revolution, was restored to power. France lost all the territories which it had annexed under Napoleon. A series of states was set up on the boundaries of France. Why? Because to prevent its expansion in future. The Kingdom of the Netherlands, which included Belgium, was set up in the north and Genoa was added to Piedmont in the south. Prussia was given new territories on its western frontiers, while Austria was given control of northern Italy. German Confederation of 39 states that had been set up by Napoleon was not affected by the treaty. Whereas in the east, Russia was given part of Poland and Prussia was given a part of Saxony. Now we will learn about the age of revolutions during 1830 and 1848. Liberalism and nationalism were associated with the revolution in many regions of Europe, such as the Italian and the German states, the provinces of Empire, Ireland, and Poland. These revolutions were led by liberal nationalists belonging to educated middle class. Now, these revolutions in different places were as follows. For example, the first upheaval or disruption took place in France in July 1830. The Bourbon kings were overthrown by the liberal revolutionaries who installed Louis Philippe as the constitutional monarch. The July Revolution started an uprising in Brussels, which led to Belgium separating away from the United Kingdom of the Netherlands. Whereas in early 1800s, Greeks fought for independence from the Ottoman Empire, many people supported the Greek cause, and in 1832, Greece was officially recognized as an independent nation through the Treaty of Constantinople. Now, there is a topic in her book that is the romantic imagination and national feeling. Now, culture also played an important role in creating the idea of the nation. Not only warfare and capturing the nations, art and poetry, stories and music also helped to express and shape the nationalist feelings. Romanticism was a cultural movement that aimed to develop a specific type of nationalist feeling. Romanticist German philosopher Johann Gottfried Herder claimed that true German culture was to be discovered among the common people or the Daspo. Poland supported nationalist feeling through music and language. Karol Karpinski celebrated the national struggle through his operas and music and transformed folk dances like the Polonaise and Mazurka into symbols of nationalism. Language, on the other hand, also played an important role in developing national sentiments. After Russian occupation on Poland, Polish language was forced out of schools and Russian language was imposed in place of it. Now, one of the important topic in the chapter 1 is hunger, hardship and popular revolt. The 1830s were the years of great economic hardship in Europe. The first half of the 19th century saw an enormous increase in population all over the Europe. Now, population from the rural areas migrated to the cities to live in overcrowded slums. Small producers in town faced tough competition from imports of cheap machine-made goods from England due to their advanced industrialization. Peasants struggled under the burden of feudal dues and obligations. Now, the condition of the workers in town was extreme. One incident happened which is very important for your class 10 syllabus. In 1845, weavers of Silesia village led a revolt against contractors. It was because the contractors supplied raw materials to weavers and gave them orders for finished textiles but reduced their payments. On 4th June, a large crowd of weavers revolted and demanded from contractor for higher wages. However, they were treated badly and threatened by the contractor. In 1848, population of Paris revolted due to food shortage and widespread unemployment. Barricades were erected and Louis Philippe was forced to flee. As a result, a National Assembly proclaimed a republic and granted suffrage to adult males above 81. Now, what is May Revolution? On 18th May 1848, the elected representatives assembled in the Church of St. Paul and drafted a constitution for a German nation. According to the constitution, the nation was to be headed by a monarchy which was under the parliament. When the deputies offered highest position to Frederick William IV, King of Prussia, on these terms, he rejected it and joined other monarchs to oppose the elected assembly. Monarchs understood that the cycle of revolutions and separations could only be stopped by making compromises with the liberal nationalist revolutionaries. Changes were that serfdom and bonded labor were abolished both in the Habsburg dominions and in Russia. Women had formed their own political associations, founded newspapers, and had taken part in political meetings and demonstrations. Despite this, women were not allowed to vote during the assembly election. When the Frankfurt Parliament met at the Church of St. Paul, women were admitted only as observers. Now, the making of Germany and Italy, unification of Germany. After 1848, nationalist sentiments were promoted by conservatives, often for promoting state power and political domination over Europe. In 1848, the middle class tried to unite the different regions of the German Confederation into a nation-state governed by an elected parliament. Prussia's chief minister, Otto von Bismarck, aimed to achieve the goal of unification with the help of Prussian army and bureaucracy. The major events that occurred at the time of unification of Germany were three wars over 7 years with Austria, Denmark, and France ended in Prussian victory and completed the process of unification. In January 1871, William I, the King of Prussia, was declared the German Emperor in a ceremony at Versailles. On 18 January 1871, an assembly comprising the princes of the German states, representatives of the army, and important Prussian ministers, including the chief minister Otto von Bismarck, declared the new German Empire headed by Kaiser William I of Prussia. During the middle of the 19th century, Italy was divided into 7 states, out of which only one state, Sardinia Piedmont, was ruled by the Italian princely house. The north was ruled by the Austrian Habsburg, center was ruled by the Pope, and the southern regions were ruled by the Bourbon King of Spain. In 1860, the army under Garibaldi marched into South Italy and the Kingdom of the Two Sicilies. They succeeded in winning the support of the local peasants in order to drive out the Spanish rulers. In 1861, Victor Emmanuel II was declared King of United Italy. The states of Tuscany, Modena, Parma, and the Purple were joined with the Sardinia. Now, some famous personalities contributed in the unification of Germany and Italy. For example, Giuseppe Mazzini. During the 1830s, he was a revolutionary who actively supported the unification of Italy's states. An Italian revolutionary, Giuseppe Mazzini became a member of the secret society of the Carbonari. He was sent into exile in 1831 for attempting a revolution in Liguria. Giuseppe Mazzini founded 2 secret societies, one, Young Italy in Marseilles and Young Europe in Bern, whose members were like-minded young men from Poland, France, Italy, and German states. He believed that nations were intended by God to be natural units for humanity. Following his model, secret societies emerged in Germany, France, Switzerland, and Poland. Duke Metternich described Mazzini the most dangerous enemy of the social order. After failed uprising, Sardinia Piedmont's king Victor Emmanuel II took on the task of unifying Italy through war. Another person was Count Camillo Cavour. Chief Minister Cavour led the movement to unify the regions of Italy. He was neither a revolutionary nor a democrat. Due to his efforts of forming an alliance with France, Sardinia Piedmont succeeded in defeating Austrian forces in around 1859. Another personality, Giuseppe Garibaldi, prominent personality in the unification of Italy. In 1833, he met Mazzini and joined the Young Italy movement. He participated in Republican uprising in Piedmont. He supported Victor Emmanuel II for his effort to unify the Italian states. In 1860, he led the famous expedition to South Italy and the Kingdom of the Two Sicilies with his Red Shirt Army. 1867, he led the army to Rome to fight for Papal States, where a French garrison was stationed. Another case was the case of the Great Britain. There was no British nation before the 18th century. The primary identities of the people who inhabited the British Isles were ethnic, like English, Welsh, Scot, or Irish. A new British nation was established through the propagation of a dominant English culture. The symbol of the New Britain were the British flag, the Union Jack, the national anthem, God Save Our Noble King, and the English language. These were actively promoted, and the older nations survived only as subordinate partners in this union. The Act of Union between England and Scotland resulted in the formation of the United Kingdom of Great Britain. By this act, Scotland was incorporated in England, hence the British Parliament was dominated by its English members. Now, visualization of the nation. In 18th-19th century, artists portrayed the nation as female figures. Female form that was chosen to personify the nation did not stand for any particular woman in real life. Female figure became an allegory of the nation. In France, the female allegory was Marianne, and the characteristic of Marianne were the red cap, the tricolor, and the cockade, which were drawn from liberty and republic. Germania became the allegory of the German nation. Germania was represented by a crown of oak leaves because German oak stood for heroism. By the last quarter of the 19th century, nationalism lost its idealistic liberal democratic sentiment. During this period, nationalist groups became increasingly intolerant of each other and were ready to start the war. A large part of the Balkans was under the control of the Ottoman Empire. Now, what are Balkans? Balkan was a region of geographical and ethnic differences. It comprised of modern-day Romania, Bulgaria, Albania, Greece, Macedonia, Croatia, Bosnia, Slovenia, Serbia, Montenegro. The inhabitants were broadly known as the Slavs. The Balkans become an area of intense conflict as different Slavic nationalities struggled to define their identity and independence. Nationalism aligned with imperialism led Europe to disaster in 1914, while many colonized countries in the world began to oppose imperial domination. Now we have come to the end of the chapter. Thanks for watching this video. Just learn the chapter, go through your book, listen to my video, and we will get back to another video with some more interesting topics. Thank you.